All right, shall we get started? Hello, let's begin our talk about how contributing to open source can contribute to your career growth. Hello, everyone. I'm Apollo from University of Washington, Seattle. I'm the current GitHub campus expert, which I help other students to get more involved with GitHub and the open source community. But I guess I graduated yesterday, so thank you, everyone. And I guess I'll become a software engineer at Apple. Here's on the screen is my GitHub and LinkedIn if you want to connect and find out more about what I get involved in with open source communities. But I would say that everything that I can put on my resume is related to open source. And without my experience in open source, I wouldn't be able to get my job at Apple. So I'll be talking about kind of my 4 internship / open source community involvements. But I guess let's start a little bit back in time. I was working on iOS projects kind of as a hobby. One thing I wanted to do was showing a QR code on Apple Watch, which is actually a surprisingly hard task, and there's no existing solutions back then when I tried to do it. There's an Apple developer forum that people ask questions. When I take the screenshot, it's about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. But, there's always a JavaScript framework for everything. So there's a JavaScript framework for generating QR code from just a string and depends on nothing else. And there's our existing Apple-related open source project that can generate QR code on every other platform except for on the Apple Watch. I have an Apple, I have a pen, boom, Apple Pen. I was able to combine the 2 frameworks together and show a QR code on Apple Watch. With my initial proof of concept, I started to talk with maintainer of the project saying, hey, I kind of already got this working. What do you think? Do you think we can, work together to get this merged? And he says, sure, why not? So that's kind of my first initial open source contribution to an open source project that has quite a few stars, which means people like the project. It's been very helpful. This is someone I completely never met before, entirely online. We just talk through GitHub, and then we were able to let me contribute to code and allow everyone to generate QR code on Apple Watch now. And with that, I did a few more pull requests, which is how you make contributions to projects, and a few more. And I kind of, become a very good friend with the maintainer of the project. And with this kind of conversations going on, one day he posted on his social media saying, hey, our company called Happy Sharing is looking for some full-time engineers this summer. He's wondering if anyone is interested in applying. I was just graduating from high school. I have nothing else to do. I say, hey, I don't really have much experience. But, we have worked together. I have nothing else to do. Do you think, instead of full-time engineer, can you take on an intern instead? He says, sure, why not? So that's how I was able to network and expand my network, which is someone I never met before, and is able to join their company in a position that they're not even seeking for by working with them online. So I would say you're here already, have a good start. You're meeting so many people here. So definitely, follow the Pac-Man rule and talk with each other. Maybe you'll find an opportunity with someone else here as well. And then I guess I entered college, and the first thing I encountered was COVID. My dad always wanted me to become a medical doctor because he is one, but I guess I'm not exactly interested in that, and I already graduated, so too late. Sorry, Dad. But with UW, we have a very good medical school, UW Medicine, and the Paul G. Allen School of Computer Science Engineering work with Microsoft Research to produce a COVID contact tracing protocol called COVID Safe. And I was just browsing, our school news, and I saw this. I was like, cool, interesting. Let me check out their website. And it turns out that it's actually open source. So I click into it, look at their source code, and see that, hey, your code can be improved slightly by, changing a few lines of code. And they say, hey, okay, cool. If you know what to do, maybe how about joining us? And I was also managing a student organization called Mobile Development Club at University of Washington as well. So he also invited us, the entire club, to maybe also contribute to the open source COVID tracing protocol. So they sent us an invitation to join. And that's how I become part of the COVID Safe project group. Medical thing is not really my interest, but this kind of opened up a new door to me saying, okay, I can apply my existing skill in terms of making mobile apps and also contribute to the current need of the world in terms of managing the COVID situation and things. So why don't I explore a bit more about what other medical things I can work on? That is how I discovered like a hackathon that they are recommending us to attend, which is from Stanford called Cardinal Kit. They made another hackathon, to help people kind of find solutions to address the medical needs during the COVID times. And something that we did was based on the Cardinal Kit framework, a research lab allows attendees to kind of fill in some surveys and answering some questions and performing some tasks to kind of run diagnosis and collect research data during this time remotely without needing to go to a physical location to do so. And with that, we actually won an award for that. And with that new updated resume, I show up to our school's career fair. They have a company called 98.6. It is local. They offer insurance to universities of Washington students as well. But it's basically a mobile health app that allows you to, again, remotely without needing to visit a physical office to see your primary care physician and kind of get diagnosis and get medicines through that. Without my engagement and, involvement in kind of peeking into the source code of our school project, and without, their recommendation about what else other opportunities to check out, I wouldn't really be able to land this opportunity with this medical health company because I don't really have the background and knowledge of how to handle patient data, privacy and security, because there's a lot of laws regarding that. So that's another thing. When you're on GitHub, sometimes you should try to explore more than what you're already familiar with. And GitHub really allows you to discover these new opportunities very easily. So let me show you some page on GitHub. I guess I have a beta access to some of the new GitHub features, but I think some of you might have access to it too, which is a new For You page. On the For You page, you can see that GitHub recommends you some new and exciting projects to check out, such as some of the trending repositories. I guess this one is from Facebook Research. And there's also recommendations based on your interests, that's somewhat relevant to what you're already doing, but slightly new. For example, I'm familiar with the Swift programming language. So it's recommending this framework from Uber that allows you to generate tests using Swift. But there's also other announcements from the community and stuff like that. For you, you can always go to the Explore page on GitHub. So you just go to github.com/explore. And you're going to see that, here are some things based on our interests. I guess we have stuff from Microsoft Build that just happened last month. And we can also scroll down more based on my interests, based on my programming languages. We can also filter this down by topics. You can search for topics that you're interested in, for example, 3D, or Twitter, I don't know why. I guess also you can choose based on programming languages such as JavaScript. I don't know what's fun right now. And there's also a trending tab, which is showing you what is currently very hot. I guess it's AudioCraft and more things. So, these are all great opportunities that you can explore. And by contributing to those projects will allow you to have more experience with fields that you might not be as familiar with. During the process, they will allow you to, build up your skills, meet more people, and then with that, potentially opening up a door to opportunities that you didn't know that you can land before, where it's the experience already working with that field. So I guess I briefly mentioned this programming language called Swift. This is Apple's own programming language for you to work on applications, such as for iOS. So every phone that runs on your iPhone is probably made with Swift, or like the majority of them is made with Swift. And the interesting thing about this is Swift programming language, the compiler for it, which is basically the thing that translates the Swift programming language to what can run on your phone, is open source. So today all of you can visit the source code of Swift by going to github.com/apple/Swift. And I kind of did that too. I was really concerned about one bug that I was working with the QR code library that I mentioned before. That there's a library that I want to import, but it's only available on certain iOS versions. So I have written code that doesn't really compile because original Apple engineers didn't really consider about the cases that to handle. Someone opened a bug report to Apple. It has been sitting there again for many years because it's not a priority for them. So I say, okay, it's open source. Why don't I take a look at the source code and see if I can fix this myself? So that's exactly what I did. So this is my pull request to it. It's pretty long because when you contribute to a project, there's a lot of conversations going on between you and the maintainer of the project. For example, after you make the changes, you open the pull request, you should describe what is the change, what motivates you to make the change, right? Why should they care about including your contributions, whether it be extending the current functionality to a platform or fixing a bug, and then about what kind of tests you have performed, right? Whenever you make new code changes, it could potentially break some things and introduce some new bugs. So what have you tried to ensure that your code is working as intended and what they should look out for? And then with those, they will be able to look at your code and tell you what else you can improve on. For example, during my discussion, I'm not very familiar with C++. It's a very difficult language, and there's a lot of memory handling things that's pretty low level and it's very easy to get wrong. They are able to take a look at my code and says, hey, here we might have some tiny issues. You can fix it this way. You can look at the documentation here. We have similar code here. You can take a look at that as well, or maybe the performance implications and stuff like that. Because this also changes how you write programs in this programming language. It also involves updating the documentation for this feature. So they also get the documentation team involved in terms of how they plan to make changes once we get this feature merged. And interesting thing that you might not see with other projects that is for the Swift programming language, there is what we call a Swift evolution process. Basically, we also need to get feedback from everyone within the community about should we include this or not. Every open source project have their own rules. There's usually a document called contributing.md that describes what is the process of creating the merge request all the way to getting it merged. So taking a look at that will also be helpful. And in general, you'll be communicating with the team about what else you need. And most of the time, they will be very helpful in terms of connecting you with the resources you need to be successful with contributing to the project. So a few months later, my manager with this very cute cat picture on Twitter posted a new tweet looking for someone with compiler experience. Well, I say, okay, cool. I contributed to the Swift compiler before. I already know something about this, and I already worked with someone on the team. It was very nice that when I actually got the internship, I was able to actually meet the person I talked to online in office, right? I'm in Seattle. They are in California. We also have everyone around the world all contributing to the same project. This kind of working remotely, it's also during COVID, so Apple is also working remotely as well. Because they have seen that I have the capability to work with the team in their working style, following their process, with everyone on the team and communicating clearly about what I want and addressing their feedback, to understand that I will be a great member with the team. So having taken a look at what are the existing open source frameworks that companies already released online, for example, the one we just saw on the trending page from Facebook, from Uber, look at the companies that you're interested in applying to and seeing what existing open source projects they are already hosting online, and try to get contributions to the projects will allow you to get familiar with the tools that they're using, get familiar with the process, and get familiar with the people. So that when the opportunity comes, they know that you will be a great team player on their team, and you're more likely to get the job than anyone else. So to quickly summarize, as a contributor of open source projects, you'll learn more about using Git, which you will be doing today. But also, when you're doing work, most likely you'll be using Git as well. I don't know if there are any students here today. At school, you'll most likely be using Git, and during internships, that's also the case. So practicing using Git on your own will allow you to be more productive at work, and also allows you to skip some of the mentorship and really get to the core of the internship and deliver the work that you want to deliver. Again, networking with people around you and discovering new opportunities, as well as collaborating with people around the world to really know the people and know the working style that they have. One thing that my manager always kind of enforces me to do, even at the company, is being precise about what I mean. And communicating online and asynchronous really trains you to do so, because any misunderstanding will make the review process going much longer. For example, I wasn't really familiar with the process, which is why my pull request took a year to get merged. But most likely, you wouldn't need to spend that long of the time to really get things merged. So if you practice more, you can get things merged much faster. But that's only one aspect of open source. When I talk about contributing open source projects, I mentioned this word maintainer. Austin is also a maintainer for some projects. I'm a maintainer for the QR code library now, as well as some other projects. But most of the things just begin with as projects that you own. I like to kind of use GitHub as my personal cloud drive for saving all my open source projects. It's always there. I can always find it. But one day, some people will come across it and find it to be helpful, and they'll start to contribute and make pull requests with your project. At that point, you are now a maintainer. And as a maintainer, there's more responsibilities, but there's also opportunities for you to grow more skills in terms of getting involved in open source. One of my main projects I'm maintaining right now is something called KDE Connect. KDE Connect is an application that allows you to kind of use AirDrop and more features across more devices, not just between iPhones, but also between iPhone and Android, with Windows and also Linux platforms. KDE, if you don't know, is an open source community that have a lot of interesting things. If you play Steam Deck, the operating system that runs on it is KDE Plasma. If you are into drawing, the open source Creator app is also made by KDE. And also the foundation of web, KHTML, is also made by KDE. And these open source projects usually participate in an event called Google Summer of Code, in which, again, is another opportunity for you to discover more organizations and projects that you can contribute to. For example, we have Swift, we have Python, we have Blender, and many more. And as an open source project maintainer, you'll most likely also get involved in terms of running this project and supporting new members to contribute to your project and sharing your knowledge with them. So what I do is I manage and maintain the iOS portion of KDE Connect. Here's the detail of what you do. When you're making a pull request, you as a more experienced member of the project, if it's your own project, you are probably the one that understands it the most. And when other people want to add a feature to it, they might not be as familiar. So sometimes they'll need more help in terms of, some of the other things they can use to make the code simpler. Sometimes it might be the technology that you're more familiar with. There are better practices that they should follow. Sometimes it might be just they made a typo and you can correct them. And sometimes you'll be pointing them to resources that they can use to learn more about how to contribute. For example, Apple sharing resources about how to manage memory with me while making contributions to the Swift compiler. So this is a fun new thing that you can try with doing code review with either GitHub or GitLab or whatever platform there is. Looking at the code, having conversations about how we can all together improve the code better. This is a great opportunity for sharing your knowledge about the project and just in general about the technologies. And sometimes, by looking at their code, you will learn about new approaches to how to write code that you didn't even think about before. And I was able to learn many interesting techniques while I was managing and reviewing code changes made by other members of the community. And next, project management. With open source projects, there are a lot of things that you can do in addition to writing code. There's also managing where do I want to take the project next to. For example, there are a lot of tasks, open tasks that you can work on with KDE Connect. So I guess if you're interested in learning more about how you can contribute, you can talk to me afterwards. Another thing that I kind of do is, coordinate with members of the community about what are our priorities right now, what you can work on, what help I can get you to work on it more effectively. And also, when users complain about certain features that are not working, you'll also be adding bugs to this bug tracker or converting a bug report to an issue task and assigning to someone to work on. With Google Summer of Code, there is something similar called Season of KDE, in which we kind of do advocacy for the projects. We advertise on social media about opportunities that members can join, what are the skills that they need, and we will allocate time to foster the community by helping and setting up synchronous meetings. So although most of the times when we are making contributions to open source projects will be asynchronous, there are opportunities for you to set up synchronous meetings with the project maintainers to discuss things and report on progress. Many times it will be through events like Google Summer of Code or Season of KDE, but if you ask nicely, I believe that maintainers will be more than happy to help you out, because once you become a core member of the team, we'll be more productive together, and we'll be able to, together make the project better for everyone else. So, on the other side of open source project, in addition to just making code contributions, you'll be now practicing more skills, such as managing more complex Git operations, right? Most of the times when you make pull requests, it will be pretty simple, everything works, but many times you will have these very complicated merge conflicts. Have everyone experienced merge conflict yet? Yeah, it's pretty fun to resolve those. Most of the time will be the maintainer kind of to help out, because especially with our project, some of the conflicts only the more experienced member will know how to resolve them correctly with Apple's project format. And you'll also be in charge of setting up CI/CD. Using GitHub Actions and things like that, it's possible to automatically run tests so that when you're doing code review, instead of looking at the code style yourself and running the test yourself, you can have an automatic report that tells you if everything is working as expected. And the maintainer is able to kind of skip the boring process of communicating. We need to have 2 spaces instead of 4 spaces. We need to use tabs. We need to uppercase the variable name. We can skip all of those conversations and go directly to how we approach the problem. And there's also continuous delivery that allows you to just ship the code. For example, when you make changes to our repository, just go directly to the App Store once we approve it. So simplifies a lot of things and save your time and save everyone else's time. Also allows them to feel achieved, right? If you see your code getting merged and it directly goes up to the App Store, it's pretty fun, and it enables more people to get involved. Performing code reviews, and then running project management, and welcoming new members to the community. But one question that I always get is, am I good enough to contribute? I guess the answer is yes. My rather simple contribution to the Swift compiler is fixing a typo. You say, well, what's the importance of that? Well, it's actually very important, right? Because it shows you that you are careful enough to read the documentation, to understand how everything works, and you are careful enough to discover that make it a typo. Sometimes it could be fixing a broken link. That is also very important, because now you re-enable everyone else to find the resource that they need to resolve their current problem. So documentation, project management, design, everything involving with an open source project you can contribute on. It's not just writing code. So that's my experience with getting involved in the open source community and how it landed me a job at Apple. With open source community involvement, I was able to develop personal skills, communication skills, and technical skills that is necessary for me to become a successful intern and I guess returning to Apple this year. It is a great chance that I had to share with my passion with everyone in the open source community and everyone here today. And the most important thing is to have fun. Thank you very much.